Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Back with another video. Following the whole shift in the global alignment, South Africa being in the middle of the United States and communist Russia, China, BRICS, and that whole gang, we are now moving in a particular direction, and there's consequences to all of that. There's aid cuts, there's threats of sanctions, there's people, journalists, it seems, who say they are journalists. I'm referring to the man by the name of Colonel Chris Wyatt. There's a YouTuber out in the United States in central Pennsylvania who wears a Springbok shirt, and he's gathering quite a large viewership from South Africans and Americans. And so he's, indoctrinating and giving certain people, doses of the medicine that he wishes to deal out. And in his recent video, he spoke now about what had transpired in our parliament regarding the debate on the U.S. and South Africa's relations. It seems Julius Malema was the one who called or proposed to parliament, however all of that works, to have everybody show and empty their pockets. Tell us who you are. Look at what Trump is doing. What do you think about it? And so we're going to be looking at his speech here. In the video that Colonel Chris Wyatt did, he spoke about Julius Malema making unfounded allegations, making threats towards the United States, etc., etc., etc. And following all of that, there was now more of Trump's desire to show us that he's willing to show serious favor towards the Afrikaners and to give them express way to citizenship in the United States if they feel threatened.
So he issued this truth post today. South Africa is being terrible. Plus, the long-time farmers in the country, they are confiscating their land and farms. And much worse than that, a bad place to be right now, and we are stopping all federal funding. To go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited into the United States of America with a rapid pathway to citizenship. This process will begin immediately.
So we are now really being flexed on. It is being shown to us that the white people carry immense value more than any other. The powers that be, those who have the power right now, are not afraid to show that the white life is a priority more than anything else in all of God's creation. So now let's have a bit of Chris Wyatt's video so that we have a bit of context about our tensions with the United States.
This morning, the 7th of March, 2025, exactly 1 month after his executive order, he published this Truth Social post. But before I get to that, I want to mention that I'm going to tell you why this came out today. This is in direct response to the shameful conduct of parliamentarians in South Africa's parliament yesterday, the 6th of March, 2025. There was a discussion, a debate in parliament about the United States cutting foreign aid to South Africa. Members of parliament got up and spoke about this. This topic was brought to the table by Julius Malema of the Economic Freedom Fighters. And then a number of people got up and said their piece. Malema was vile and repulsive and insulting towards America and making all sorts of unfounded allegations and lies about America. And I'm sure that sort of pissed Trump off. He wasn't the only one. The IFP also said some vile things about the United States, which is a bit surprising. And there were some rational minds in Parliament. Gabe McKenzie was a little confusing. He was here, he was there, saying that America needs South Africa. We don't. That South Africa needs America. You do. So it was a little confusing what he had to say. And then I understand that Athol Trollop said some very obvious things about the nature of what's going on in South Africa and why the relationship is tattered. So in response to that abusive, insulting behavior, all the United States has done is simply stop giving you free money.
Heard that? Now let's jump straight to it. Here is Julius Malema.
Deputy Speaker, on the 20th of September 2001, former President of United States of America, George Bush, declared what became known as the War on Terror on Iraq and Afghanistan, stating that, I quote, "It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated." What followed was a massive disinformation campaign to justify the 2003 invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan under the pretext of locating and destroying weapons of mass destruction. Decades later, no such weapons were ever found. This invasion was about minerals and oil reserves, not weapons of mass destruction. Iraq and Afghanistan have never recovered. Cuba, Libya, Venezuela, and Chile are examples of nations that have suffered from U.S. interventions because of their socialist policies, justified by false intelligence to advance imperialism. Cuba has endured decades of sanctions for nationalization of strategic sectors of the economy, supporting African liberation and socialism, while Libya was destroyed because Gaddafi rejected U.S. dominance. We raise these historical facts because history must guide us in everything we do. When Donald Trump declares that, I open quote, bad things are happening in South Africa without evidence, we must not assume that the USA is misinformed. Instead, we must question the real intention behind such statement. After Trump's remarks, the US froze foreign aid globally under the pretext of assessing alignment with the policy outlook. For South Africa, this meant PEPFAR funding of HIV/AIDS response was under threat. On 26 February 2025, the freeze became permanent, terminating funding indefinitely. The US aggression towards South Africa is nothing more than Israel's revenge for our moral stance in support of Palestine. Meanwhile, some of us have been labeled international criminals, a designation used before the West assassinates those who opposed its agenda. Before invading the nations, the US always fabricates human rights violation to justify intervention. Today, same tactics are being used against South Africa. The growing calls by right-wing groups for foreign funding to establish independent states and to be armed by foreign interest must be recognized as part of a broader plan. This is the early stage of economic isolation, leading ultimately to military intervention. Next, AGOA will be terminated, escalating tensions between USA and South Africa. Our government must dismiss opportunistic Afrikaner racist groups exploiting US imperialism to fund their racist fantasies of an independent state. That will never happen. We will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refuge in America. Deputy Speaker, Trump and the USA are not demonstrating strength. The USA is merely displaying an advanced stage of capitalism, which is imperialism. Trump engages in transactional and manipulative relationships.
Hold up. He said that this is an advanced form of capitalism. So capitalism, we've not seen the full monster as yet. Life is still young. Perhaps the Lord still has a lot of time to give us here on earth, and we are going to see great and mighty extents of things that we've known. See? We'll know the full extent of the love of war. We will see the full extent of capitalism and what it becomes. Those who are able to prophesy or tell what is to come. One of them is a man by Yanis Varoufakis, and his book is called Techno-feudalism. What killed capitalism? And so in his book, he pretty much gives us a picture, a prophecy of what is to come. And he says that when the rich get really rich, there are monsters and zombies that will come out of the woodwork. And Julius Malema is saying that what Donald Trump is engaged in is kind of what Yanis Varoufakis has prophesied will happen. Techno-feudalism. If you know what feudalism is the lifestyle before there was capitalism, employment, the 9-to-5 job, industrialism. It was a life where people lived under lords, monarchs, kings, nobility, the clergy, the serf, the lowest of the classes. And so people were born with particular merit. If you were born as a rich person in society, that was your position and your family's title for good. Hardly did people fall off. There wasn't the kind of wealth that we have today that can be gained and lost. People held their worth in large amounts of land. There were fiefdoms, you see. And so those who were serving the higher ups always remained as low-class people, slavish kind of people. They would earn by working the plot, the land of the higher ups, and they would get paid by eating food off the land and living on the land. So techno-feudalism describes now a situation like that. So that situation went away when people started working jobs. The exchange between the higher up and the lower person was a fair largely, no, not largely, no. It has been a robbery for the most part, exchange between the employer and the employee. And so now that the rich have gotten rich from this robbery all their lives, and now they are getting to this point where they are super rich. That's according to techno-feudalism. I'm not saying that everybody who's rich has done something wrong or there's something inherently wrong with being rich or being a capitalist. We're talking about the very extreme of things. You understand that sugar is nice, but too much of it is a poison. Many things are in excess. So the situation in techno-feudalism is one where after capitalism and industrialization, we now get to a point where the very rich are even able to use AI and machines, self-driving cars. They can have a value chain and trucks, and they can deliver to their stores where there are no chefs in the kitchen, where there's no teller, where there's no waiter, and the stock can be delivered by trucks that drove themselves from the warehouse. So now there's no employment. AI, the machine, is working for the very rich person, and that very rich person continues to get even richer. So now there's this very serious class divide where men start to see themselves really as gods, and they start to behave as such. And so Julius Malema is saying Donald Trump has got that flu now running in his system. He wants to show big balls. He wants to take those nuts and pack them on the faces of the poor, like this pit bull that's doing to the smaller pit bull over there. That's what he's doing. It's a new kind of school bully. The rich school bully who can bully an entire country. Men, women, child. Whatever you think you are, whoever you think you are, Donald Trump and the Chris Wyatts will stand there and tell you to change your laws or else. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring you on a ride as we watch whether South Africa and our President Ramaphosa will actually cower and change the law. And then we will know that indeed we are captured and we are living from the handouts of the master. We think that we are independent, but we are living on the master's land. The world belongs to the United States and they dictate. If you're born poor, you'll always be poor. If you're born as a United States citizen, you'll always be kind of superior to the rest of the world. Let's jump into Malema. I won't be interrupting again.
With the world like it is his backyard. The hostility towards South Africa does not come from fraudulent boers spreading disinformation, but from America's imperialist agenda. The USA, home of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies, agencies that fabricate evidence to justify the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and orchestrated the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, cannot now claim to be victims of disinformation from a minor racist group based in Orania. The USA has openly embraced the golden age of imperialism, extending its power through threats and the prevention and termination of foreign aid. In response, our government foolishly seeks to explain our policies to a maniacal president as if the USA were a victim of misinformation. The USA knows exactly what it's doing and why it is doing it. At a Golden Sachs event of the 27th of February 2025, South Africa President Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa stated, I quote, Trump got the wrong end of the stick of the country's land policies. I completely reject this notion. The USA, home of Elon Musk's platform, X platform, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Tesla, Starlink, and Silicon Valley, the global hub of data collection, cannot claim to be misinformed. They are the greatest perpetrators of disinformation. The USA is the greatest perpetrator of disinformation. It is now using its own falsehood as justification to attack South Africa. This government refused to acknowledge the real issues. We are being punished for supporting Palestine against apartheid Israel, nothing else. The USA does not believe there is a white genocide or land grabs in South Africa. These lies are useful tools to justify economic aggression and seek to weaken our moral authority to condemn Israel's genocide. Foreign aid has always been a tool for Western imperialism and control. It must end with South Africa. We must expand our trade and strengthen relationship with China, India, Russia, Brazil, and Singapore while emphasizing African unity. The USA is on a full mission to extort the world into submission, and as a result will become increasingly isolated. Our sovereignty, security, and economic prosperity on rejecting the American Golden Age, a project of imperialism. The world must move forward without the USA if true progress is to be achieved. We are not the puppets of the USA. We will never be bullied by Donald Trump and his friends. South Africa remains an independent state, which is not handled by the USA. The majority of South Africans love their whites. They worship them everywhere they go. Why will they kill them? They always seek white validation and affirmation of whiteness. It is a black talent. It is a black talent. It is not a black talent until white people say so. If it is a black skill or innovation, it is not until white say so. If it is black quality product, it will have to pass many hands before they endorse this product. Any political party without white endorsement will never receive any electoral support and financial support until white establishment says so. Like the Cuban people will never give up on our freedom against American imperialism. We must unashamedly continue to stand with Palestine and Russia. We are product of international solidarity. We are Palestinians and they are Africans. We will die shoulder by shoulder with Palestinian people. We will be buried next to their graves because no amount of American bullying and financial dictatorship will separate us. Not even death will succeed. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. We are not product of land theft or genocide. We are not grabbing any land, but claiming what rightfully belongs to us. We are not engaged in what genocide. Instead, we are coexisting with our white murderers. Whatever it takes, this land shall be expropriated and will be returned to its rightful owners. Victory is certain. Hasta la victoria siempre.
We're living in coexistence with our white murderers. Yeah, nah, man. You know, ladies and gentlemen, me having been a member of the EFF, I've given up the quest for land and whatever. I believe that the land expropriation bill, as it is currently, is recognizing the supremacy of the Afrikaners, the resourcefulness, the togetherness, the communism that they've managed to pull together and adhere to, their communalness, the community that they formed is a formidable force. It's an example that is great and mighty. It is not something that is out of the ordinary, really. It's not something from heaven. It is unity. It is progress. It is a desire to strengthen themselves as a collective. And all other people can imitate that style. But for now, while others are divided, the Afrikaners have a togetherness that is so very powerful, it risks embarrassing the incapable ANC government and shaming the black people who are not being catered for by the Afrikaners, who have all turned to look center, turn their backs on everyone and carry out their own affairs for their own culture, for their own people, for their language, for their skin color. So, something at the beginning of democracy as well. The Afrikaners or someone or a group of founders bought a farm, a large amount of space, knew that the ANC was going to accept, in line with the global world, private property rights, meaning, okay, fine, we do away with apartheid, but within my home, I can still be a racist. I can still hold to whatever mindset I want. Right of admission reserved. I can have an establishment and I have a right to not permit certain people in. It's a golf estate. No, not a golf estate. I'm looking for a golf club. You see? We'll say it's by invitation only. We only take you if you've been recommended by somebody who's already in the club. And on top of that, it's very expensive. So all kinds of barriers can be put up to leave people outside. And the ANC had to accept that, look, this is a democracy, but it doesn't come with total access to people and their spaces. So a black person can't just go now and ransack and put their hands inside a white man's pants and say, freedom is here, man, I can touch whatever. So with that right of admission reserved and private property rights. Somebody or a group of Afrikaners recognize that we can still have the same. We just need to have a property that is big enough, and we will make it an Afrikaner state, an independent area where we will use our power and our might and our communism to go as far as we can. To build schools, if possible, to even create our own energy sources, to build our own stadiums, to have our own sport leagues where it's only Afrikaner boys who play and participate, to have TV channels that only broadcast our culture, to have news that only speak for us. The ANC suddenly realized that, hey man, I think this law that we are agreeing to turns into a monster when it's really taken to its extremes. It sends us right back to apartheid. It sends us now to a worse state, actually. Can I really say it's a worse state? I mean, yeah, in some brand new way it is. Imagine the Afrikaners in a farm over there learning high advanced AI. There are kids there meddling with DeepSeek R1's API. Afrikaner kids learning N8N, if you know what that is. How to make autonomous agents that can do work for you. The productivity, the amount that it shoots up for those kids who learn these sort of skills. The detriment of the one who never gets to know any of these things. The disparity, the high bandwidth that it creates between them. Now, the supremacy of power and money and extremely good knowledge about things in the world. That really makes this situation one that is worse than apartheid. And the ANC sort of recognized that, yo man, this is just going to be a huge shame. The Afrikaners there are going to build a utopia. They're going to build the land of milk and honey. They're going to build a Sandton plus Waterkloof plus Clifton out in the bush there. And it's gonna be something so amazing and beautiful. We will have tourists, white tourists, flying into South Africa and then taking another flight into the Principality of Orania, the Monaco. And so the ANC recognized that we cannot have such disparity. We have to stop it. We have to stop its potential. We have to find a way to keep our hands on Orania a little bit. We have to create a law that says at some point in the future, if you build a New York City right in the middle of South Africa, and there's high education and there's high healthcare over there, and everybody, the taxis on the road are Rolls-Royce Phantoms, we are gonna have to come there, put our hands there, and run some elections for the municipality. And now, start being in charge of collecting the trash and supplying the water and the electricity. We're going to have to say, hey, this area has been expropriated and so have the sports. And so that stadium and that stadium over there will be introducing blacks to you very soon. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will be in 1993 again. History will have repeated itself. We will now be talking integration. Allow some black kids into your schools. And now in 2035, we'll be having a black child go to a school in Orania for the very first time. Isn't that amazing that we can go so far and travel so far back in this one life that we have? So ladies and gentlemen, as techno-feudalism arrives on the shores, as the expropriation bill tries to stop Afrikaner techno-feudalism taking place in South Africa, you've got the Chris Wyatts and the Donald Trumps trying to force the ANC's hand to allow this to happen, allow this supremacy to plant its flag in South Africa. When the whole world looks at white supremacy and what it is capable of doing, let United States have the gold medal and let South Africa have the silver. Let the disparities between the black person and the white person be really highlighted in these two countries. The serf and the high ups, the clergy, the nobility, and the peasants. I'll see you next time. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. My name's Neo.